My wife made a public post announcing she was leaving her controlling husband for her soulmate. She called herself the creative genius behind my company. So I did what any supportive husband would do. I liked the post. Then I spent the next hour systematically erasing her from the business I built long before I ever met her. The relentless hum of the server rack was the only sound in my office, a familiar white noise that usually brought me a sense of peace. It was just after 9 o'clock on a Thursday evening, the city lights painting a glittering, indifferent mural outside my window. I was neck deep in quarterly reports for the marketing agency, a company I had bled for, nurtured from a one-man operation in my spare bedroom into a respected firm. That's when my phone chimed, a small, insignificant sound that heralded the implosion of my marriage. It was a notification from Instagram. My wife, Astrid, had tagged me in a post. My first thought was that it was another one of her cryptic motivational quotes, but the preview text was anything but. My thumb hovered over the screen for a second before I tapped it open. The image was a professionally filtered selfie of her and Ronan, her consultant, their heads tilted together, radiating a kind of smug serenity. The caption, however, was a masterwork of revisionist history, a declaration of independence written in the language of pure delusion. After years of being controlled and diminished, it read, "I'm finally choosing love over convenience." Ronan sees the real me, the creative genius behind our company's success, not just the helper my husband pretends I am. Time to spread my wings and fly. Hashtag new beginnings, hashtag true love, hashtag know your worth. I read it once, a cold, detached calm settling over me. I read it a second time, dissecting the absurdity of each phrase. Controlled and diminished. I had given her a title, a salary, and free reign with company credit cards she used for personal shopping sprees. The creative genius. Her primary contribution was making social media posts and occasionally designing a flyer, often with glaring typos. My husband pretends I am. I was the one who landed every major client, negotiated every contract, and managed the finances that paid for her $8 oat milk lattes. The comments were already a tidal wave of sycophantic support. Her yoga buddies were gushing about her bravery. Her sister, Desiree, had chimed in with a predictable, "You go, girl. So proud of you for escaping that typical toxic male who could never handle a strong woman." It was a complete, public assassination of my character, built on a foundation of lies. I felt a strange sense of clarity, not anger. It was the feeling of a long overdue, septic wound finally being lanced. Without a moment's hesitation, I tapped the heart icon. I liked the post. My phone buzzed again 30 seconds later. It was a text from Astrid. "Did you seriously just like my post about leaving you?" I typed back immediately. "Yeah, good for you. When are you moving out?" The 3 dots indicating she was typing appeared and disappeared for a solid 5 minutes. She was clearly thrown. She had expected a fight, begging a dramatic scene. She had orchestrated this for maximum impact, and my calm acceptance had stolen her thunder. That's it. No begging, no asking me to reconsider. Her text was laced with an almost comical indignation. "Nope," I replied. "You made your choice. I respect it." Finally, a new message popped up. "I'll be getting my stuff tomorrow. I deserve half the business, by the way." I didn't bother to respond to that. Instead, I turned back to my computer, the quarterly reports forgotten. It was time to do a different kind of accounting. I pulled up our business financials, legal documents, and employee records. Here was the reality Astrid had so conveniently ignored in her narrative of oppression. The marketing agency was mine. I had founded it 5 years before I even knew she existed. She came on board as creative director a year after we were married, a title I invented to give her a sense of purpose and involvement. Her actual role was peripheral at best. I, on the other hand, was the engine. I was the rainmaker, the strategist, the one who worked until 9 on a Thursday night to keep the lights on. But I had been generous, foolishly so. I had given her company credit cards with no spending limit, which she treated as her personal slush fund. I gave her full access to the office and our systems. I even, at her insistence, let her hire her friend Ronan, the soulmate, as a brand consultant 6 months ago. The pieces of their affair clicked into place with sickening clarity. He wasn't a consultant. He was a parasite she'd brought into my company, paid for with my money. By 10 o'clock, my methodical dismantling of her fictional empire was complete. I logged into the company's banking portal and canceled both credit cards registered in her name. I changed every single password to our company accounts: email, social media, accounting software, cloud storage. I revoked her administrative access to our client management system. I sent a calm, professional email to our building manager requesting an emergency lock change for our office suite at 7 the next morning. I drafted and sent an email to our entire client roster, informing them of an internal restructuring aimed at improving efficiency, making no mention of her name. I backed up our entire server to an external drive. Then, I drove home to the house I'd bought, walked into the bedroom I now occupied alone, and slept more soundly than I had in years. I woke up to the digital equivalent of a toddler's tantrum. 52 missed texts and a dozen voicemails. The first 20 messages were variations of WTF my card was just declined at the gas station. The subsequent texts, dictated through a voice-to-text service, grew increasingly frantic and unhinged. She accused me of financial abuse, of stealing her company, of trying to ruin her life. The magnum opus of her morning meltdown was a text that read, "Ronan says this is illegal, and you can't just cut off my income stream, you psycho." Her income stream. An interesting way to describe a salary she received for doing next to nothing while actively plotting to leave me with a man I was paying. The real world, I suspected, was about to hit Astrid like a freight train. The first day of Astrid's new life was a spectacle of entitlement meeting immovable reality. She arrived at the office just after 10 in the morning, her soulmate Ronan in tow, with a U-Haul truck that was comically large for the few personal trinkets she kept at her desk. The new locks, however, had been installed promptly at 7, just as I'd requested. I was on a conference call with a client when the pounding started. A rhythmic, insistent banging on the glass door of the office suite. I put the client on hold and watched the security camera feed on my monitor. It was Astrid, her face contorted in a mask of outrage, hammering on the door with her fist. Ronan stood behind her, attempting to look imposing, a feat made difficult by his 5'7" stature, man bun, and skinny jeans. After 20 minutes of her futile assault on the door, during which she started kicking it with her designer boots, I finally called building security. A weary-looking guard named Frank, whom I knew well, arrived and calmly tried to reason with her. "This is MY office," she shrieked at him, her voice echoing in the marble lobby. Frank was unflappable. "Ma'am, your name is not on the lease. Only Mr. Morrison's is listed." "I'm Mrs. Morrison," she screamed back. I couldn't resist. I walked over to the door and spoke through the reinforced glass. "According to your post, not for long." Ronan stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "You need to let her get her things, bro." "Her things are in 3 neatly packed boxes in the lobby," I called back. "Everything personal has been set aside. The desk, the high-end computer, the ergonomic chair, and all other equipment belong to the company." Her fury was biblical. She stomped over to the boxes, grabbed one filled with her scented candles and inspirational quote paperweights, and hurled it at the door. "I don't want my things," she howled. "I want my company." Frank, having seen enough, politely but firmly escorted both of them out of the building. Day 2, she tried a different angle, corporate espionage. She began contacting our biggest clients directly, spinning a fantastical tale in which she was the true mastermind behind their successful campaigns and was now launching her own superior agency. She invited them to jump ship and join her. My phone rang that afternoon. It was John, the CEO of our largest account. "Hey, Mark," he said, sounding more confused than anything. "We just got a very strange email from Astrid. Didn't she just post all over social media about leaving you for some life coach guy? Why is she claiming she owns your company now?" I sighed. "Let's just call it a mental breakdown, John. I'd appreciate it if you didn't engage with her." "No worries, man," he laughed. "To be honest, we were always a bit confused about what she actually did. You're the one we've always dealt with." Her designs once included a typo that spelled restaurant with an extra N at the end. The attempted client poaching was a spectacular failure. Day 3 brought an escalation into outright fraud. I received a call from my business banker, a stoic man named Mr. Henderson. "Mr. Morrison, just wanted to give you a heads up. Someone came into the branch this morning attempting to access your business line of credit. She claimed she was your wife and needed emergency funds for payroll." "Let me guess," I said. 35, blonde, looks incredibly entitled." "That's the one," he confirmed. "We didn't provide any information or funds, of course, but I thought you should be aware. Also, we received an online application for a small business loan using your company's EIN. We flagged it as potential fraud." That afternoon, I received an email from Astrid with a PDF attachment. It was an invoice. She had actually, unironically, invoiced me for her time at the company. The line items were breathtaking in their audacity: creative direction, 3 years, $450,000. Brand development and strategy, $75,000. Emotional labor and spousal support, $100,000. Lost future earnings due to hostile takeover, $500,000. The grand total was $1,125,000. I stared at it for a full minute, then chuckled and crafted my own invoice in reply. Office rent, unpaid $0 because you never had to. Salary and benefits, for minimal contribution, $165,000. Personal charges on company credit card, lunches, clothes, spa days, $47,832. Salary paid to consultant boyfriend, $36,000. I sent it back to her with a simple note. Looks like you actually owe me $248,832. I'll take a check. She blocked my number. The real turning point, however, came when her soulmate Ronan began to realize that the money tree he'd been shaking had been chopped down, and he was left holding a dead branch. According to Astrid's Instagram, she'd forgotten I still followed her from the company account. They were shacked up in his apartment. The visual whiplash was severe. She went from posting glamorous shots from our professionally designed, open-concept kitchen to taking grainy selfies in his cramped studio apartment, a PlayStation and a pile of laundry providing the romantic backdrop. She tried to play it off with captions like, "Love doesn't need luxury, just two souls connecting on a higher plane." Sure, Astrid. That's why you're posing with a cup of gas station coffee instead of your usual custom-ordered, ethically sourced $8 latte. The desperation began to seep through the cracks. My friend Jerome, who owns the design firm in the office space next to mine, called me, laughing. "You are not going to believe this," he said. "Your wife just walked in here asking if we're hiring. Said she was a top-tier creative director with years of executive experience." "What did you do?" I asked, already knowing the answer. I asked to see her portfolio. She showed me 5 of her Instagram posts and a flyer she designed for a taco truck 2 years ago. I told her we'd keep her resume on file. Jerome continued, his voice choked with amusement. But that's not even the best part. Her boyfriend, the man-bun guy, pulled me aside as they were leaving and asked if I knew anyone who needed a life coach. He showed me his certification from some online course he finished last week. The power couple's job hunt was clearly not bearing fruit. Meanwhile, my phone was ringing with calls from vendors Astrid had apparently been stringing along. A local printer called, asking about an order for 5,000 business cards. They just say Astrid Morrison, CEO, the owner told me. She said you'd be covering the bill. She is no longer associated with this company. I explained patiently. You'll have to send the bill to her directly. But she said she was taking over next week and would handle all payments then, he sputtered. Did she provide a company purchase order? Did she use a company credit card? Did she give you anything in writing from me? I asked. Well, no. Then I'm afraid that's an issue between you and her. He was not pleased. Neither were the 3 other vendors she had made similar empty promises to. Day 5, she turned to the legal system. She filed for emergency spousal support, her claim a work of pure fiction. She alleged that I had forced her to quit her lucrative career to work for me for free, leaving her destitute. My lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense man named David, actually laughed out loud when I read him the petition. Force her to quit what exactly? David chuckled. Her last job before you two got married was a part-time retail position at a clothing boutique. And we have the pay stubs showing a consistent $55,000 annual salary plus bonuses. She has zero claim on the business. It's a premarital asset you never commingled. A judge might grant her some temporary support, but given that she publicly cheated and left you for another man, she'll have a hard time playing the victim. The true comedy, however, came from an unexpected source. On day 6, I got a Facebook message from a woman I didn't know. Her name was Chloe. "Hey, I know this is a weird question," she wrote, "but is your soon-to-be ex-wife dating a guy named Ronan Giles?" "Unfortunately for her, yes," I replied. LMAO. Well, good luck to her. He still owes me $3,000. He told me he was investing it in his coaching business, but he spent it on music festival tickets and weed. He's a professional grifter who only dates women he thinks have money. The second I cut him off, he was gone. I thanked her for the information and, on a hunch, did a little more digging. It turned out Ronan was a serial freeloader. I found 2 other ex-girlfriends who told similar stories, one of whom had even tried to sue him for the $15,000 he'd borrowed to start a crypto trading venture that never materialized. I forwarded everything to David, just in case. The situation reached its inevitable, messy climax on day 7. Astrid showed up at my house, this time with her sister Desiree and a police escort. She was claiming I was illegally withholding her personal property. The officer who knocked on my door looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Sir, your wife says you've locked her out of her residence and are refusing to give her access to her belongings, he said, reciting the complaint with zero enthusiasm. Officer, I said calmly. She publicly announced on social media that she was leaving me for another man a week ago. She has been living with him ever since. All of her personal belongings are untouched in the bedroom, and she is welcome to collect them. He's lying, Astrid screeched from the driveway. He's hiding assets. There's cash in the safe. What safe? I asked, genuinely perplexed. The one in the office. You mean the metal filing cabinet where I keep client contracts? I asked. The officer sighed, the sound of a man who had seen too much domestic drama. Ma'am, let's focus. Are there specific items inside that belong to you? The whole house belongs to me, she declared. I decorated it. I made a home. Is your name on the deed to the property, ma'am? The officer asked. Her silence was the only answer he needed. I let them in, and under the officer's weary supervision, Astrid and Desiree began to pack her things. It wasn't enough for her. She tried to take the 65-inch TV from the living room. That's mine, I said. I have the receipt from 2 years before we met. She moved to the kitchen, pointing at the stainless steel appliances. These are mine. I cooked with them. I have receipts in my email. I countered. Bought the whole set during my bachelor days. The officer finally had enough. Ma'am, you will take your clothes, your shoes, and your personal effects. That is all. As they were leaving, her arms full of designer handbags, Astrid's eyes fell on my grandmother's antique china, displayed in a hutch in the dining room. In a final, desperate act of spite, she grabbed an armful of the priceless, irreplaceable plates and hurled them against the wall. The sound of shattering porcelain echoed through the house. The officer didn't even hesitate. He put her in handcuffs and arrested her for destruction of property. As he led her to the patrol car, Desiree screamed at me that I was an abusive monster who had driven her to this. The officer just shook his head, a silent acknowledgement of the pathetic reality of the situation. The divorce was swift. With a premarital asset, no children, and a mountain of evidence of her adultery and subsequent erratic behavior, she had no leverage. A judge awarded her 2 months of temporary spousal support at $1,200 a month. That was it. The grand empire she thought she was entitled to had crumbled into a pittance. The final act of the Ronan saga was delivered, fittingly, by his ex, Chloe. She sent me one last screenshot. It was a text from Ronan to her. Hey babe, been thinking about us. Made some mistakes. Want to grab coffee? The timestamp was 3 days after the judge's ruling on Astrid's meager support payment. Chloe told me she had forwarded the screenshot to Astrid with the simple caption, "Your soulmate's looking for his next meal ticket." That night, at 2 in the morning, my phone rang. It was Astrid, and for the first time, the tears sounded real. It wasn't the performative crying I'd seen before. It was the raw, ragged sobbing of someone whose entire world had just been obliterated. He's been texting other women, she choked out. I know, I said. You knew? Why didn't you tell me? She wailed. Would you have believed me? I asked. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. He asked me to add him to my bank account, she whispered. He said it was for our future. My blood ran cold. Did you do it? I only have $3,000 left, she stammered. Did you? Or didn't you, Astrid? Yes, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Then you have $0 left, I said flatly. Check your account. I could hear the frantic tapping of her phone's keyboard, followed by a guttural wail that probably woke her new, low-income neighbors. How did you know? Because that's his move, Astrid. His ex-girlfriend told me everything. You didn't leave me for a soulmate. You left me for a con artist. Congratulations. Can you? She started, her voice trembling. No, I cut her off. You didn't even let me ask. You were going to ask for money. The answer is, and will always be, no. This is the life you chose. This is all your fault, she screamed, the victimhood returning. If you hadn't cut me off, Astrid, I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. You announced to the world you were leaving me. You tried to steal my business. You tried to ruin my reputation. You destroyed my grandmother's china. You made your choices. These are the consequences. I'll be homeless, she cried. Ronan changed the locks on his apartment. You have parents, I said. You have a sister. You have options. This is between you and him now. I hung up. The aftermath was a slow, pathetic fizzle. Astrid moved back in with her parents. The last I heard, she was working for her sister shilling essential oils in a multi-level marketing scheme. Her social media posts about being a boss babe, ringing hollow to her ever-dwindling audience. Ronan vanished, his digital footprint wiped clean. Rumor has it he moved 2 states away and latched onto another woman with a small business. As for me, my life has never been better. My business is thriving. Without Astrid's chaotic creative direction, we've become more focused and efficient, landing 3 major new accounts. I hired a real creative director, a woman with a stunning portfolio and 2 decades of experience. The difference is night and day. My lawyer has my divorce decree framed next to the cease and desist letter he sent Astrid. He calls it his favorite case of the year. Yesterday, I got a LinkedIn connection request. It was from Astrid. Her new profile listed her as CEO, Morrison Marketing, 2019 to 2024. I took a screenshot, sent it to my lawyer, who replied with a string of laughing emojis. Then I reported her profile for false information and blocked her for good. Life is quiet now. It's productive. It's drama-free. And when someone shows you who they are by cheating on you and trying to burn your life to the ground, my advice is simple. Believe them. Let them go. And always change the locks.